It's time for RealAg Radio on Rural Radio Channel 147 on Sirius XM. RealAg Radio and RealAgriculture.com is your home for insight and analysis of the issues that are impacting your farm business. Let's get real and get connected with RealAg Radio. Welcome to RealAg Radio here on Rural Radio 147, Sirius XM. Shaun Haney, your host here on this Tuesday edition of the show. Thanks so much, everybody, for making RealAg Radio and Rural Radio 147 a big part of your workday. Of course, also, big shout out to everybody listening out there on the RealAg Radio podcast. Well, we got a great show for you here today. We got my great friend and business partner, Justin Funk from Agri Studies. Obviously, I'm Shaun Haney from RealAgriculture. Together, we are Real Agri Studies, doing a ton of great market research and trying to really shed light on how does the farmer feel, what are their attitudes, and what is important to them at the farm gate level, and really trying to give the farmer a voice on what is happening in the industry of agriculture. Today, we're going to talk about the farmer and ranchers, their relationship with salespeople. Now, it could be ag retail, it could be banking, the local ag equipment dealership, whatever have you. There's a lot of salespeople that farmers are always having to interact with. But are those good interactions? Are they interactions the way the farmer wants them to experience? We're going to dig into some new market research that we have on that. We're going to give you a little bit of a taste of it. Indeed. We're also today going to hear from Derryn Shrosbree of 33.7. We've been doing this ongoing series of continuity conversations. Looking forward to hearing from Derryn on that one. We've had some great feedback on some of the things that Derryn has said in past appearances. We've also got a product spotlight with Farming Smarter. They've got an event coming up here very shortly, and then we'll finish up maybe with a bit of your feedback at the back end of the show. Now, if you have any feedback on today's program, we would love to hear from you. You can send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com. You can also call the RealAg feedback line, 855-776-6147. Today I'm in Waterloo, Ontario. I got a client presentation this afternoon. Looking forward to that, giving a presentation to a board of directors on some of the things that are going on in the industry. Looking forward to it. But I'm in Waterloo, and Kitchener-Waterloo is a busy area. But you got to sort of think about Nortel and then BlackBerry. This was BlackBerry. This was it, right? This I don't know at the peak how many jobs that were created by BlackBerry in this center. And you got to think, like, before the iPhone and the Galaxy phone, there was BlackBerry. It had the government business. It had the corporate business. Like, and just think what was and what is today. In some ways, it was a great Canadian success story. And in other ways, it was really the wrong strategy. And there was a high, had the market. It was all there. And then the iPhone came around. And somebody had said to me yesterday, I wonder when the product development teams at BlackBerry at RIM were sitting around the board table and they were watching Steve Jobs talk about the iPhone and how it was coming to the market. I wonder what the initial reactions were. Were they like, what is this? This is stupid. Nobody's going to like a touch screen. Our little rollerball is like premium. Everybody wants a rollerball. No one wants to touch their screen. And apps? What are apps? That's dumb. Or was it sort of like that recognition of, we're in trouble? It kind of makes me, on the latter, it makes me think of, you remember VH1 had those rockumentaries? I remember there was one when Guns N' Roses. And Guns N' Roses was like at the top of their game with the 80s hair bands and that style of music. By the way, still very good. But by the time they got to the end, it moved into the 90s. It was all of a sudden there was this band Nirvana. And I remember Slash in that documentary saying they were sitting there in the hotel room and all of a sudden the video comes on, Smells Like Teen Spirit. And whoever Slash was sitting beside from Guns N' Roses, he basically said, we're done. He just knew it. It was a different sound. It was a different vibe. It was just something that was going to change the trajectory of music for a decade or more. And that's kind of what happened to the BlackBerry. And I had a BlackBerry. I told everybody at team meeting today, I actually went from BlackBerry to a Galaxy phone. I've never had an iPhone. So, just fascinating stuff sitting here in Waterloo, which you would probably say is the home of the Canadian tech sector. I would probably say still today, I guess. Maybe some of you will correct me on that, but at least that's how I see the branding. Hey, let's take a break. When we come back, we've got Justin Funk from Agri Studies standing by. We're going to talk about farmers' interactions with salespeople and what you want to get out of your salespeople right after this. Time for a product spotlight with ATP Nutrition. Jared Chambers, what exactly is a biostimulant?
Enhances nutrient uptake, enhances nutrient use efficiency while dealing with abiotic stress. It is a complement to a nutrient. If a plant is missing certain nutrients, it can't always expel the oxygen out of the leaf, and it actually damages the leaf and damages the cell, which means photosynthesis is compromised. With biostimulants, it actually tells the plant to get rid of oxygen. It becomes an antioxidant. If you don't fix the nutritional imbalance, you've only temporarily fixed the problem. So this is why a biostimulant has to be tied into a tissue sample, and then to say what nutrient is out of balance. What is your targeted goal? So my treatments are going to be target this 1 or 2 nutrients with the biostimulant in it.
For audience listening in the U.S. or in Canada, where do they go?
They go to atpag.com.
Peter Johnson at WheatPete, RealAgriculture.com, and what an opportunity! Oh my gosh! You think you can't grow better wheat? You are absolutely wrong. We're going to show you how to strive for those record wheat yields that they get in the UK and in New Zealand. You can grow 150 bushel wheat. I'll show you how.
Catch WheatPete's Word every Wednesday on RealAgriculture.com or download the podcast on iTunes or Spotify. Welcome back to RealAg Radio. Register for the Soils for Our Future conference, a gathering of global to local perspectives. Join us July 20th through the 25th of 2025 at the RBC Convention Center in Winnipeg. Learn about global perspectives, today's research to sustain our future. Register today at soilsforOurfuture.ca. Let's talk about what's going on in the world of sales related to the interactions with farmers. Here to talk to us about some research is Justin Funk of Agri Studies. Hey, Justin, how are we doing?
Pretty good, Shaun. How are you?
Pretty good, man. Pretty good. And of course, Justin and I do a lot of the research together with Real Agri Studies. If you do want to find out more, you can go to RealAgriStudies.com. Hey, Justin, before we get into the real hard-hitting stuff, I do have to ask you, I was able to be joined last night. I was invited to your house, I should say, last night and had supper or dinner with yourself, your wife, and your son. We had a great time, and a bit of a debate while you were going to grab some drinks, your wife and I had, was what's the proper kind and amount of ice in a Manhattan? Because you're famous for your Manhattans, so I would like to know, what's your ice of choice?
Packed with ice on the rocks. I know a lot of people like the big cube because it doesn't water it down quite as much, but I have always loved a full glass packed with ice. It's delicious.
What makes a good Manhattan?
I do.
That's a good answer.
Yeah,
it's a good answer.
It's, in my opinion, it starts with Crown Royal. There's no better rye to make a Manhattan with than Crown Royal. Some vermouth, dash of bitters. I mean, it's your typical recipe, but I like to feel that I also make it with love. So I hope you enjoyed it.
I did very, very much. Do you prefer the Manhattan over the old-fashioned?
I do.
Yeah.
Hands down. Yeah.
Interesting.
You bet.
Okay. Well, we're doing some hard-hitting stuff here. Okay, let's talk about some of the things that we have found. Now, this is a follow-up piece of research to some work that we had done at the back end of 2022 and some research that you and your father had done even before that. It's looking at the interaction of farmers with salespeople. I guess at 100,000 feet, what are some of the trends that we continue to see develop?
Yeah. So first of all, there's a lot of anecdotes out there around, well, I'm been being bombarded by salespeople, or I never see any salespeople. We also look at in the industry, there's a lot of changing dynamics right now. Farmers have the ability to procure products in many different ways that may or may not involve salespeople. And there's also a lot of turnover that's happening in the field of sales where a lot of people are retiring or moving to other careers, and new salespeople that are taking their places. And so, with all those changes that are happening, we feel it's important to maybe wrap our head around this and put some numbers to it as well. So, one of the questions that we asked was very simple, but in describing the relationship that farmers have with salespeople, would they say that they rely on them more than they have in previous years, less, or about the same? And I'm not surprised to see this, but you pretty much had 14% and 15% on either side saying more or less, but 71% said I rely on salespeople about the same as I used to. So, the role of the salesperson continues to be important, and I don't think it's going anywhere anytime soon. It just may change a little bit.
It was interesting. Yesterday, I was out in Niagara on the Lake and had a great time with a group of Growmark managers from across Canada and the U.S., and we had a really good session. And I was sitting in throughout the morning, and one of the managers from the U.S. said, he was giving an update on their locations and what they're doing in their business, and it was really interesting. And one of the things that he said was, our customers need us more than ever right now. And I thought, simple statement, but bang on. I guess you're nodding. You agree with that?
Yeah, I do. I think that it's absolutely true. But I think what the industry needs to recognize is that while farmers may rely on salespeople, they just might not rely on them in the same way that they did 10 years, 20 years ago, because the industry is changing so quickly. And so is the farmer, too, with the amount of education that they have, experiences that they've had, and access to information in general.
Yeah. Now, broad brush question, and everybody's going to be different. How do farmers want to be, if they do identify their retailer as a key partner and, a key cog in the wheel, so to speak, how do they want to be interacted with?
Yeah. So this is a question that we asked back in 2022. And at the time, put ourselves back to that time, we were just emerging from the pandemic where we were starting to have interactions in real life again. So we wanted to know to what degree had the relationship changed with respect to how the interaction was taking place. So we asked at the time, do you prefer face-to-face, telephone, text or email, virtual meetings, which at the time we were doing a lot of virtual meetings. And one of the things that we found in 22 was that there was a gap that exists. Farmers wanted to be contacted face to face, but they weren't necessarily getting that experience. Fast forward to 2025, when we just collected this information again in April of 25, we learned that gap had actually closed a little bit. It seems that salespeople in general are starting to do a little bit better job of meeting customers where they're at with respect to the type of interactions they want to have. And something to keep in mind, we focus on the face-to-face. I think that's typically what we associate with sales calls. And I would say just little less than the majority of farmers said that's what my preference would be. But let's not ignore, too, that there's some that would prefer to be contacted by phone or by text or email. And so I think it's important that, there's a relationship in place where we understand what is the expectation, and then we're able to meet that expectation.
Yeah, and I think it's important, in communication to be direct about things that are important to you, right? And so in a business relationship, like for the farmers listening out there, tell your retailer how you want to be talked to. Like, don't he's always sending me emails. I hate it. Well, okay, like say, hey, I prefer to get those by text, or hey, I prefer if you stop by. And for a lot of the retailers, whether you're an ag retailer, your equipment dealer, probably a lot of your people in the CRM department are going to tell you to be doing this anyway. I don't need to tell you, but you should know those things as well. What is the preferential type of communication that your customer wants to interact with you in?
We don't always think about it this way, but I mean, sales is it's a hard job. It really, really is.
Oh, it's very hard.
Yeah. And when you're 23 years old and it's your first job, it's often the first job somebody is given, and you're given the keys and the customer list and say, here, have at it. The salesperson is certainly up against a lot. I think that it's important to have that conversation, to say, this is how I would like to be interacted with. I think it's also important that the salesperson takes it upon themselves to ask that question too, because they're putting a lot of effort into this, and it takes time to get to a lot of these customers' places. And if that customer would just as soon have you interact a different way, then that frees up time to spend face-to-face time with people who actually value it or who want it. So I think that there's a lot of reasons for these conversations to take place. It makes for, I think, a more efficient and more effective relationship.
Now, when I say salesperson, everybody's going to have some sort of image in their head, right? They're going to, whether it's a personal experience or it's something through pop culture. But you've got some data in terms of what are the characteristics of good salespeople. What are some of the things that we found?
Yeah, so we separated this question into two parts. One was characteristics of salespeople, which really refers to the human being, and then there's sales activities. And some of the more important characteristics of salespeople. I mean, honesty is number one. And I often ask that question, like, how often should you deal with a dishonest person? And, the answer probably should be once, and none if you can avoid it. But, it's important, especially given the amount that's at stake here. And technical knowledge. But, I look at those two things as being table stakes, right? Like if you don't possess those characteristics in today's industry, then it's probably going to be a very short experience for you. And so now we look to some of those other things that might actually influence the day-to-day relationship, like being well-organized and professional was one of them. Being a good listener, being friendly and personable. Friendly and personable is one of those things that I think we definitely take for granted. But, if I'm choosing to spend my time with somebody and, they're equal on every other characteristic as somebody else, but one's nicer than the other, that they bring more joy to my day, I mean, to me, that answer's obvious. So in some cases, these less important characteristics can end up making a big difference because everybody seems to be pretty good at the big things.
Yeah. Still incredibly difficult out in the marketplace for ag retails and your travels across Canada and the US for them to find people?
Yes. Sales, aside from being a hard job, from the act of selling, I think there's a lot of demands that are also put on salespeople because they're not just salespeople. When push comes to shove, they got to throw themselves into operations. They got to do a lot of admin. In some cases now, we're seeing a decreasing population in the countryside, so we're trying to attract people from maybe more urban centers, and the lifestyle change that may happen as a result of that, or having to relocate to a rather remote area when I'm not used to that. It's hard to attract and it's hard to retain. I see a lot of turnover from organization to organization, no matter where I am. And there's also, I think, the idea that because for some sales is looked at as a starting point, people have their sights set on maybe moving into different roles within the organization. So, they have a bit of a career path in mind.
It's really interesting. I'm sure you get this question lots. I do too. But, what do you think is the future of ag retail? And I can come up with a number of different pathways that all of that goes. I got to worry about where the ag media space is going first. But I think you have the questions about any sort of industry and the impact of things like artificial intelligence and technology, whatever out is on the horizon to disrupt an industry. But one thing that has not really changed, now I'd love your comments on this, is that the farmer really relies and sees the ag retail as an incredibly important source and a part of the decision-making process.
Yeah, so we've actually seen growth in this answer to this question is your retailer part of your management team? And more farmers today agree with that. Their preferred retailer, not just any retailer, but their preferred retailer. And one of the factors that I think contributes to that is that a preferred ag retailer is not just a provider of product or a provider of information. They become, I would like to say, a broker of information, right? They act on the farmer's behalf. They distill the information down to the need to know, because there's so much noise out there. And so the retailer can be a very valuable resource in providing product. I mean, that's, we know supply is an issue, and having a product there in a timely fashion, that's one of those important factors of that retail relationship, but also being able to distill the information down to the stuff that's meaningful.
Yeah, I look at it this way where, we know that 68% of farmers see 2025 is riskier than 2024. 75% of farmers thought that 24 was going to be riskier than 23. So if you compare 23 to 25, our risk perception, real or perception, is really on the incline. And the opportunity for the retailer is that partner or part of the management team is to provide clarity and help steer through all of these, controllable or, internal or external risks, and try to provide that kind of support. That's where there's a real opportunity. It's really fascinating to me.
Yeah, and that point right there is an important one, and take that back to a characteristic of a salesperson who is really the steward of that relationship. Being a good listener and taking time to get to know the customer, not make assumptions, like every customer is different, and then be able to respond to that in a way that adds value. So there's a lot here that all kind of fits together. This study was certainly a lot of fun to do, and it was really fun to see the changes that have occurred over the time frame that we have been doing this.
Well, and we've kind of talked a little bit about ag retail, but of course, you can't look at, and I know a lot of times the phrase is, sales is sales. If you could sell a dishwasher, you could sell that, the skill, there's a base set of skills there. But how the farmer wants to interact and deal with somebody that's maybe ag retail versus a crop protection manufacturer versus an accountant and financial services versus the equipment dealer, there can be some differences there. So that to me is also a fascinating, some of those nuanced pieces in terms of supplier interaction. That's also a very fascinating piece.
Yep, and that's something we looked at as well. You can't paint every part of the industry with the same brush.
Yeah.
Take equipment, for instance. Crop inputs are purchased every year, right? Equipment, maybe not. Feed it's on a much more frequent cycle. So you're going to see the differences and the nuances between those different roles.
Yeah, if somebody has some questions or some thoughts, maybe you got your own perspectives, or you would like a little bit of a deeper dive into this topic on some of the things that we found in the study, make sure you reach out to Justin or myself. Justin, how do they get hold of you?
You can go to agristudies.com or feel free to send me an email, jrfunk, F-U-N-K, at agristudies.com.
Yeah, and of course, my email address is shaney@realagriculture.com. Would love to talk to more people about some of these findings and make sure farmers are getting served better in the long run. Hey, before I let you go, Blue Jays for real?
They pulled one out last night. I like what I see.
Yeah, people seem to be like, we're in second place. I say we, second place, man. Ahead of the Red Sox. I think we should feel pretty good here the middle point of June in terms of where they're sitting. It could be worse. You could be the Orioles.
That would definitely be worse.
Way worse. Way worse. Okay. Hey, Justin, thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
You're welcome. Thank you, Shaun.
Of course, that is Justin Funk of Agri Studies. In partnership, we are Real Agri Studies. Of course, also producers of the Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index. If you want to find out more, go to realagristudies.com. We'll be right back on RealAg Radio, Rural Radio 147, right after this.
Hi, I'm Bernard Tobin, host of the Soybean School on RealAgriculture.com. Throughout the year, on the Soybean School, we'll bring you timely agronomic video content from planting to harvest, from the latest agronomic research to the latest in production technology. Check out our massive video library on YouTube, RealAgriculture.com, or download the audio podcast versions wherever you get your podcasts. The Soybean School is brought to you by Mazix Seeds and Lalamon Plant Care.
We're joined right now by Greg Stewart, who is Syngenta Canada's biological field specialist. Okay, Greg, today we're going to talk about 4-yield drive. Okay, what is that?
To consider that there are 4 yield components to corn. That is rows around and length, final ear count, and kernel mass. You can make some good decisions and have some great discussions when you know those 4 yield components. And 4-yield drive is sort of just asking us to be a little bit more careful about our agronomy, look at those 4 yield components so we can make better decisions. It's not rocket science, finding the weakness and looking how to fix it.
Definitely things to keep in mind for the 2025 growing season. Now, Greg mentioned some of the components here of 4-yield drive. You can talk to your local Syngenta rep, or I encourage you to go to syngenta.ca.
Welcome back to Real Ag Radio here on Rural Radio, channel 147, Sirius XM. I am Lindsay Smith, and joining me now for today's product spotlight, it's Shaun Kjos, communications coordinator with Farming Smarter, and we are going to chat about the upcoming Farming Smarter Field School. Shaun, welcome here.
Thank you for having me, Lindsay. I'm excited to be here.
Okay, so tell us all about this event. Let's start with the basics, where and when, and then we'll dig into the details.
Absolutely. So Farming Smarter's Field School will be hosted at our research farm just outside of Lethbridge along Highway 512. It runs 2 days, Wednesday, June 25th and Thursday, June 26th. People can join us 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Wednesday and 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. on Thursday.
All right. Okay. Now there's going to be, I'm sure, because this event, or the Farming Smarter events are always don't miss. There's always lots going on. So what topics, can people expect if they're going to join you?
Yeah, so potatoes are a new crop for us, and so it's something that we're excited to share with our audience. We're going to have Amanda Crook from McCain Foods share her perspective as an expert on the research that we're doing, like nutrient response, zero tillage, and drip irrigation. As well, I think a big presentation that our audience will enjoy is Ken Wall's presentation on soil salinity management, and he'll be sharing tips on how to improve your soil's drainage. Dr. Mike Harding will be joining us for a cereal leaf disease session, which should be interesting to catch. He has potted examples to show the progression of various cereal diseases, so you know what to look out for when you're scouting in the field, things like that. And he'll be sharing plans of action for each disease so you know how to see it and how to act immediately. Lastly, I think Robin Davidson's session discussing the challenges and opportunities of lupins becoming a potential new pulse for Southern Alberta will spark a great conversation.
Well, you've got cereal diseases, not so pretty, but lupins, absolutely gorgeous. So, absolutely. Yeah, running the gamut there. It sounds like a fascinating day. Now, you've also got, of course, we can't reveal all the details, but the plan is that there will be an announcement made and that the Alberta Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation should be on site to make that announcement.
Absolutely. Yeah, we are very excited to welcome Alberta's Minister of Agriculture and Irrigation, R.J. Sigurdsson, to join us for that potato session Wednesday morning, where he has an exciting announcement that pertains to us and how we're going to be helping out Southern Alberta's agriculture industry, expanding our capacity into potatoes and irrigation.
Okay. See, there's always, you got to have a draw, a little bit of mystery. So watch for that as well. Now you mentioned some great speakers, some great topics. Who does this field day or this field school really apply to? Who should make sure that they've got this on the calendar?
I think anybody who is in the agriculture industry will get a lot of opportunity from this. We're going to have lots of room for networking and trade shows that are built into the agenda, including a social event after sessions conclude on Wednesday, where a lucky attendee can take home a door prize with them. But other than that, I think it's just a great opportunity for everybody to come out to the field, hang out at the Quonsets. It's 2 days of fantastic speakers and presentations with a lot of cool segments. You'll have great catered lunches, as well as the opportunity for hands-on learning, networking with folks that you don't know, meeting people you already know, and getting the chance to catch up. And yeah, if you're interested in reviewing some agronomic updates to improve your practices, either if you're familiar with them or you want to learn some new ones, it's a great opportunity. We have a bunch of soil-related topics covering everything from water filtration and soil structure to your crop's relationship with microbes in the soils. So if there's pretty much anything that you want to learn something more about or brush up on for agriculture, this is your opportunity to come out, learn alongside us, and help direct the future of the industry, right? You'll get to share what you know, the challenges you face, and talk to some of these experts that'll be hosting the sessions.
Absolutely. I looked at the agenda. There's something for everybody. You're absolutely right. It's a great one. And it's 2 days of learning. And as you mentioned, lots of networking opportunities, a chance to really, chat with people who are maybe faced with some of the same challenges that you are, whether you're farming or an agronomist or a researcher yourself. Definitely head on down there. Okay. Now, the most important part. So we know the when, we know the where, we need to know the how. So how can people find out more information? Get signed up. Make sure that they don't miss the Farming Smarter Field School, June 25th and 26th.
You can learn more about Farming Smarter's Field School by visiting our website, farmingsmarter.com. We have a big banner at the top of the homepage directing you straight to the Field School's event page. And there you can review the agenda, check out some of our speakers, and register yourself for 2 great days of learning and fun.
All right. And don't forget the sunscreen, a good hat, and a water bottle. There you go. All right, Shaun, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you, Lindsay. It was fantastic to be on here.
All right. We'll be back with more RealAg Radio right after this.
Built on over 100 years of seed innovation and unwavering commitment to farmers, Pioneer 100 Series canola hybrids deliver a step change in yield performance and agronomic traits. This isn't just better canola, it's different canola. Pioneer 100 Series. Contact your local Pioneer sales representative or visit pioneer.com/100 series to learn more today.
It's summertime, and you've got a lot of important decisions to make when it comes to your corn crop. Let the Corn School on RealAgriculture.com help guide you through those big decisions with input from leading experts in the field. If it's spray timing, disease identification, or any other field issue, the Corn School's got you covered. The Corn School on RealAgriculture.com, brought to you by BASF and Pride Seeds.
I'm enjoying beautiful Waterloo, Ontario today, but hey, have you been to Quebec City? One of the most beautiful cities in the entire country. Time is running out to register for the 2025 Seeds Canada Annual Conference. Join the industry July 7th through the 9th at the Hilton Quebec in Quebec City for insightful speakers, insights into the latest industry trends, regulatory changes, and technological advancements that are shaping the future of the seed sector. Register today by going to seeds-canada.ca/annual conference. That's seeds-canada.ca/annual conference. So please check that out. It's time for another episode of Continuity Conversations with 33.7's CEO, Derryn Shrosbree. Derryn, it's great to chat with you.
Hey, Shaun. Nice to chat again. How are you?
I'm doing good. It's hard to believe. We're on step 6, okay, through our journey here through the 7 continuity steps. And step 6 is interesting. This is where a lot of the friction happens, Derryn, especially for the farms that don't pay attention to these kind of steps and do the process properly. And there's a saying in succession planning of equal's not fair and fair is not equal. Step 6 is, do you love your on-farm and off-farm children equally? Yikes, Derryn, that seems like a pretty contentious question.
It's meant to be. Yeah, it's meant to position it and to get people to the root of what are we doing here and why are we doing it. So yes, I worded it in a very specific way so that you cannot maneuver around it. It hits you straight up.
Okay, so I assume people's answer would be yes. If your answer is no, that maybe takes us down a bit of a different path. I'm not sure, but
yeah, no, that's not always yes. It's definitely not always yes.
If everybody's in the room, this could be very awkward. I guess if the answer is yes, what are we doing?
Yes. So let's start with that. I like the yes one, by the way. Predominantly, it is yes. There are some interesting folks that have the no or the maybe. There's a maybe folks as well. Those are the most tricky. The maybe is the most tricky, by the way. Anyway, so let's go yes. So let's just use an easy example. Let's say that you have 3 kids, all right, and you love them equally, and you have 1,000 acres. And so you can extrapolate the numbers. Most people have 10,000 or 100,000, whatever the case may be. So you have 1,000 acres, you have 3 kids. Great stuff. 1 on farm, 2 off farm, right? You have a 1,000-acre farm. Obviously, if you take that farm and you split it into 300 pieces, the viability of the farm will go to 0. It's not farmable. The farm will break down, right? So we cannot split the farm up through a third, because it's not a pie. We can't split the pie up, right? But you can split a pie up, but you can't split the farm up and keep the farm viable. So too, if there's 3 kids, all 3 of those kids, can the farm manage all 3 of them being on farm? Most farmers say no, they cannot. They can't handle 3 families, but we'll get to that later. So love your kids equally. 3 kids, 1 on farm, 2 off farm. Farm 1,000 acres. Let's say it's worth $10 million. Easy math, right? So your $10 million farm, and you are now sort of transitioning out, and you're trying to figure out who gets what when I die, who gets my stuff, right? So to your point, equal is not fair, fair is not equal, correct?
Yep.
So how do we divide it? Any ideas?
Well, I think a common tool here is, well, we don't divide it. We try to find outside the farm operation ways to at least not find equality, but at least try to find fairness, if that's possible.
You hit the nail on the head. Finding fairness is key. Finding fairness. It starts with a conversation. Pretty much, once again, I always go back to, what does the farmer want? What do you want as the farmer? Not what your kids want, not what everyone else does. It's your farm, it's your money. What do you want? How would you like the farm to continue? Whole continuity planning situation has accelerated, right, to epic status, like crisis status, because of the value of land. Right? The value of land has driven this conversation into what is now a crisis, because when acreage was $300 an acre, $600 an acre, continuity wasn't that difficult. But now, like the same farmer from the 70s and 80s that was worth $5 million, he could easily be worth $100 million because of the land value increase. Right? $5 million, easy to solve, go into a bank, borrow $500,000 and give it to your kids. How do you go and borrow $20 million from a bank, which encumbers the farm? By the way, the on-farm kid will absolutely hate this strategy, because he has to pay the interest expense and he has to pay the loan back. How? Yeah. How does the farm pay a $20 million loan back to give 2 off-farm kids $10 million each? Like, it makes no sense.
It actually sinks the farm potentially. Like, if you can't generate the cash flow, you're sinking the farm. It's just a slower death.
It is. It's death by 1,000 cuts, or death by 1,000 interest payments, right?
Yeah.
So cutting the farm up acreage-wise kills the farm. Going to the bank now, because acreage is so expensive, getting a loan to equalize an estate is ruinous for the farm. So the 2 options, very, very uncool. The third option is do nothing. And that's what 88% of farmers is the do nothing approach. What they say is, I'm just going to go plant canola. It's going to be fine. By the way, it's not. It's not going to be fine. It's not going to be fine at all. because your kids are not going to have dinner together, because the family will be torn asunder. It will, because it happens all the time in agriculture. People start suing each other. It becomes a train wreck. Why? Because of the value of the farms are so big now that beforehand people didn't care. Oh, Dad's got a farm, it's worth $3 million. Hang on a sec. Dad's got a farm, it's worth $100 million. Now there's undue interest and not good. Okay, so how do we fix the estate plan so that A, there's good rules in place, and B, your family still has supper together on the 25th of December, right? So we can't sell acreage. Doesn't work. Can't split it. We can't load the farm with debt because it'll wreck the farm. Don't do nothing because it's going to end in the same disaster as the first two, right? So the fourth option, and we alluded to this in the last continuity conversation, is the farm goes out and buys life insurance. There's two ways to do it. In the next segment, we'll discuss the second way for estate equalization. But the easiest way for estate equalization is because you're going to die. So the farm buys a life insurance policy. Let's just say it's worth $2 million, right? So $2 million. So the premium is 200,000. Easy math. So 200,000 goes from the farm to the insurance company. As last segment, we borrow back the 200,000. So you have the same amount of money. You continue farming as if this never happened, right? But you have this $2 million life insurance policy that grows every year and vests, which means the value can't go down. This is very important. Vesting means it grows. You die 20 years from now, right? The loan is paid off. That's the first piece. Whatever's left over, which is a huge amount of money, will be paid to in this example, the two off-farm children. So the on-farm child gets the acreage. It's worth 10 million. The off-farm kids, let's say the death benefit was 3 million. The loan was $1 million, right? So there's $1 million loan that's paid off. Then there's $2 million of cash. The off-farm kids get $1 million cash each, right? That's fair. It's not equal, but it's fair because they didn't work in the farm. And what a lot of off-farm children don't realize is not only do the people that on-farm, they get the asset, but they also get the liabilities and the risk. It's not free money. They get the liability, they get the risk, they get the 4 a.m., right? Every day. So that's what they're like, oh, Dad gave him $10 million. No, he didn't. He gave him $10 million with a $4 million loan, 3 combines that need to get serviced, and all this other risk that goes along with it, quota, tariffs, you know it, right? So there's got to be a conversation about, guys, the on-farm is not just getting $10 million in cash. He's getting a whole lot of liability and a whole lot of risk, right? You guys, off-farm, you're getting $1 million cash, right? That means that if the conversation is done properly, everyone is delighted because the farmer gets the farm, the off-farm kids get the cash, and everyone has dinner and they play Catan for hours.
Okay, so for the whole life policy, it's a corporate policy, and is the beneficiary the off-farm kid?
No, the beneficiary is the farm.
It's the corporate entity.
Yes, it's the corporate entity. The farm pays the bill. The farm owns the policy. When you die, the policy pays into the farm, which creates a capital dividend account surplus. It's called a CDA.
Yep.
That capital dividend account surplus is the way to tax-free, is to get the proceeds of the life insurance tax-free to the beneficiaries, which are written down in the will. Hence, you kind of need a will to direct that money exactly to where is it going? Where's it going, and who's getting it, right? So do you see how everything's intertwined?
Yeah.
You know.
So how do you deal with the contentiousness of, and I kind of asked this question a little bit before, but so although on-farm child or offspring takes on the risk, and there is equity there, or there is a value there, but they have the opportunity to make money from this family asset. The off-farm kids, they're basically waiting for mom or dad to die before they're able to reap some financial rewards from their lifelong work. Is there way to satisfy them financially in the interim, or is it basically, listen, you made the decision not to farm, that kind of goes with that decision, you just got to wait?
Yes. You can do what's called a warm handshake inheritance. So you can use So, for example, remember in the last segment, we discussed the loan piece a little bit.
Yep.
So the farm can take the loan, right? And you can actually give it to the off-farm children, right? And then when you die, the loan is paid. You can do that. That's a warm handshake inheritance. So you can start funneling, let's just call it $1 million to the off-farm kids. You can funnel that $100,000 a year each year for 10 years. And in that way, get them money today, right? Mm-hmm. And then when you die, the loan is paid off. They don't get anything because they were prepaid, so to speak. So yes, there are mechanisms to get people money while you're still alive. And, most farmers are like, call it 70-ish. You still got at least 10 to 15 good years ahead of you, right? So you can do your estate equalization play while you're still kind of farming, kind of transitioning out whenever you wish, because it doesn't encumber the farm. Remember, because the life insurance, pay the bill, get the money back, send it to the kids, warm handshake inheritance. Yeah. You die, loans paid off, kids are happy, Catan on the 25th of December.
Okay, so time flew here. We haven't even covered what happens if the answer is no. What happens if you don't love all of your children?
So there's 7 steps in the continuity plan. This is going to have to be, what are we on, 6?
This might have to be like 6B.
6A, yeah. So this is 6A. We're going to have to do 6B, 6C. And then come back to 7, I guess.
Well, I guess, fill me in. What happens?
So yeah, if you don't love your children equally, then it's actually not that simple. You just give everything to the one child and know that there will be some hard conversations. As long as you have a good will and all that kind of good stuff is sorted out, or you put it into a trust. So you need to, once again, remember the undue influence. Because if they feel like they've been hard done by, there will be lawsuits. So how do we do that? Well, if you say only one child's getting everything, you have to get sort of full and final releases written by the kid saying everything's going to Johnny and we're not getting anything. We're okay with that. And they get that signed. So there are legal ways to make sure that after your death, because sometimes they won't stand up to their parents. So you'd be like, oh, yeah, it's dad. It's fine. I don't want anything. But as soon as you die, that changes. We're like, I want everything. Yeah. Right? So there's paper. There's got to be, good fences make good neighbors. So we have to set that up beforehand.
Derryn, I think there's an element here. Honestly, like what comes to mind is if you don't, at least pretend you do to prevent this thing from being a massive financial blow up in the courts post death, right?
Yes. And it starts with the person who's leaving who has the most financial wherewithal on the farm. That's the primary. Once the primary is gone, you have to, before the primary is gone, there has to be paper put in place, lots of it, right? Mm-hmm. And it's not complicated. It doesn't take a long time. We have to have the conversations, and the conversations are exactly what we're having here with continuity conversations. And it's not siloed. It's multifaceted because it is the will, it is the trust, it is the estate freeze, it is the tax-free zone, which is the not pay tax in April, et cetera, et cetera. So if you put all components together, then you get something which is bulletproof. If you're just firing 1 or 2, yes, it's better than nothing. But once again, you're not going to be optimized. And a lawyer can come and say, oh, well, that's not fair. My client needs X. So,
well, I think some people are going to misinterpret maybe my last comment as being like kind of cold, and the reality is here. Listen, it's a family business, and so you're essentially trying to do 3 things. You've got the family component, you've got the business component, and then you've got like, okay, what's right for those 2 things together, and creating a situation that just ends up in the courts at the end of the day is not keeping that thing together. It's thinking about just the business, not the family. And if you don't have the family part, you have explosion.
Yeah, because then all you're doing is you're working for the lawyers. Because the only person that's going to get paid then is the lawyers. That's it.
They send invoices, man. They do not do anything for free.
They're not shy. Yeah. So we're trying to kill the invoices and kill the billable hour. Not the lawyer. They're good people. We need them. But so there we go.
Yeah, well put. Okay, Derryn, thanks a lot for joining us here today. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure, Shaun. Thanks again. Awesome.
Co-op Ag Zone. Bin Logic is the ultimate tool for ensuring the success of your grain operations. Simple, scalable, solar-powered, and cost-effective. Bin Logic lets you monitor your bins from anywhere. Contact your local co-op equipment team member to learn more. We'll be right back on RealAg Radio right after this.
I'm Lindsay Smith from RealAgriculture.com. Join me Monday nights for The Agronomists, a 1-hour live and interactive show broadcast across YouTube, Facebook, and X. Monday nights at 8 p.m. Eastern, I host expert agronomists from all over the country to give you answers to some of the toughest agronomic questions. Join us live or catch the replay Tuesday morning. That's The Agronomist with me, Lindsay Smith, Monday nights live at 8 p.m. Eastern.
How's your seed quality? What should you treat with? What about herbicide carryover and environmental concerns? Spring is here, and you've got a lot of things to think about in regards to your pulse crop. The Pulse School on Real Agriculture has information and advice for all these questions and more to help you navigate this season. Brought to you by BASF. Pulse School episodes are available at pulseschool.com, realagriculture.com, or as a podcast on your favorite streaming service. Download the latest episode today.
From nutrient management to the latest weather, market, and ag trends, The Dirt. An economics podcast is your place for smart topics to boost your profitability. Join Mike Howell on Season 3 of The Dirt podcast, available now at nutrient-economics.com. I say we're going to do some feedback. I don't know if we have enough time for feedback. I got talk about how long you been doing this show and the time and any time mismanagement like this. We got like 2 minutes here at the back end of the show. Yeah, kind of my bad. You know, I do want your feedback on what you heard from, well, two things. You can provide some feedback on what you heard there from Derryn Shrosbree of 33.7 about tax planning and what you heard there from Derryn. But I also like your feedback on what you heard from Justin and I related to your interaction with salespeople. And maybe, hey, some of you salespeople that are listening to this show, you can join in here. Do you agree with what some of the data is telling us and the overall trends? Or are you managing it differently? Have you got different experiences? And same from the farmer's perspective as well. And I do appreciate all the farmers that always participate in our Real Agri Studies Insights panel. It just really sheds light on what the farmer is experiencing. I say all the time, there's so many people that are making decisions in this industry based on a discussion with 2 or 3 farmers, and it could be buddies that they live next door to, and we extrapolate that to the entire country. So it's really great to have some honest, truthful data points to understand. Like, for example, in our Canadian Farmer Sentiment Index, it's very clear. Canadian farmers are very concerned about their current and their future financial situation. And they're also concerned, and it's declining, concerned about what the next 5 years looks like for the Canadian agricultural industry. Meanwhile, U.S. farmers, it's on the uptick, 4-year high for the Purdue CME Ag Barometer, which is very, very fascinating. So if you want more insights into what we're doing at Real Agri Studies and maybe that sales interaction data that Justin and I talked about, make sure you send me an email, shaney@realagriculture.com, or you always can call the Real Ag feedback line, 855-776-6147. That's it for me, Shaun Haney, here in Waterloo, Ontario. I think tomorrow I'll be doing the show from here. Thursday, we will be back home in Lethbridge, Alberta. Thanks, everybody, for getting real and getting connected with Real Ag Radio. Chat again tomorrow. Cheers, everybody.